welcome to tonight's debate. My name is Abby and I'm the chairman, and Sarah is the timekeeper. The adjudicator is Hazel. The topic of this debate is that parking spaces for prams are unnecessary. The affirmative team to my right is from Westminster. The negative team seated to my left is from Marryatville High School. The speaking time for this debate is 4 minutes. A single warning bell will sound at 1 minute before the speaking time. A double bell will sound at 2 minutes. A continuous bell may be rung 30 seconds after the speaking time. Please ensure that your mobile phones or other electronic devices are switched off. I declare this debate open and call upon the first affirmative speaker, Molly Jennings.
Good evening, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for the debate tonight is that parking spaces for prams is unnecessary. We, the affirmative team, believe this statement to be true. We define the topic as parking spaces for prams, meaning a car park parents can park in if they have children and need to use a pram or baby capsule. These wider car parks are provided for parents to have enough space for lifting prams and their children in and out of their car, and are found close to entrances of places, especially shopping centres. We define unnecessary to mean that these pram parking spaces are not needed and are undesirable. As first speaker, I will be talking to you about the way pram parks cause aggression and how pram parks discriminate against childless couples. Our second speaker, Matthias, will talk to you about how pram parks are taking parks for disabled people and how new mothers would benefit from walking more to lose weight after pregnancy. Finally, our third speaker, Todd, will summarise our argument and rebut the negative team's points. And now to my first point. Parking spaces for prams are unnecessary because they cause aggressive behaviour in car parks. According to the Daily Express in the UK, in an article titled "Stranger Slapped Toddler in the Face in Waitrose Car Park because she wasn't in a pram park", published on the 3rd of May 2017 and written by Vicky Oliphant, a stranger launched into an aggressive outburst at the mother because she believed the toddler should be in a pram when her mother parked in a pram park. The child was walking with her mother in a Waitrose car park in Northampton when they were approached by the woman, who told the mother she had no right to park in the pram park and should move her car. She then slapped the child in the face and walked away. Another example found in Sydney's The Daily Telegraph on November 21st, 2015. It is an article titled "Hey Parking Shamers, Shame on You", written by Kerry Parnell. It states that there is an increase in parking spot shaming. Pram parking vigilantes are taking photos of cars and people who have parked in pram park but don't have any children due to no car seat. Sounds good, right? Caring people showing up others being selfish? Well, no. These pram park police are shaming these drivers on Facebook by posting the photos. The result is they are being trolled, and the article states that, alarmingly, reports have been made of them receiving even death threats because they parked in a pram park without a pram. It is ironic because on the National Roads and Motorists Association website, under "Who Can Use Parents with Pram Spaces", it states these spaces are provided by the owners of the private property. And while car park management could ask someone without a pram or infant to vacate the space, it's not enforced by law anywhere in Australia. This supports our view that pram parks are unnecessary. Now to my second point. Parking spaces for prams are unnecessary because they give parents parental entitlement, discriminating against people without children. In an article titled "There's Nothing Wrong with Being Child-Free", published in the New South Wales newspaper The Daily Telegraph on July 16, 2016, written by author of Self-Love mentor Michelle McGrath, who is an advocate for childless couples. It states, that pram parks are discriminating parks because these childless couples should also be allowed to park close to entrances. According to the Australian Institute of Family Services, the number of married couples wishing to be childless has increased from 28% in 1976 to 40% in 2016. And if they're not having children, then what is the need for so many pram parks taking up all the space in car parks? In conclusion, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we the affirmative team believe that parking spaces for prams is unnecessary and should not be included in car parks at all. Thank you.
I call upon the first negative speaker, Sasha.
Good evening, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sasha Sort and the topic of tonight's debate is that parking spaces for prams are unnecessary. As the negative team, we will be arguing the case for pram parking. We agree with the definition put forward by the affirmative team. I would like to rebut the point made by the first affirmative speaker. She stated that pram parking is unnecessary because they are being wrongly used, which leads to abuse. This is incorrect because just because some people use them incorrectly does not make them any less needed for those who do use them correctly. For instance, just because some people speed when driving does not make speed limits unnecessary. Based on the definition that we believe that based on the understanding of the definition, we believe that car parking spaces that are designed and designated for people with babies and their prams are necessary, particularly in a busy and congested world. As first speaker, I will focus on the dangers of car parks and associated with issues of safety. Our second speaker will elaborate on this and talk about the need for pram parking in terms of traffic management. Our third speaker will respond to arguments put forward by our opponents and sum up our team's case. To begin, let's take a minute to consider the research on modern car parks, or parking lots as they are called in the US. In a 2017 publication from the National Safety Council, it was reported that more than 50,000 crashes occur in parking lots annually, resulting in 500 plus deaths and more than 60,000 injuries, with children the most vulnerable. The same publication also stated that more than 66% of drivers nationwide admitted to making phone calls while driving through parking lots, and 59% said they routinely carry out grooming activities. What this information tells us is that people behind the wheels of cars driving through parking lots are typically distracted, and that accidents occur frequently as a result. In light of this, the number one argument for pram parking is safety. General parking spaces are about 2.5 metres wide, while a pram space ranges from 4 to 5 metres wide, giving approximately an extra 2 metres of flexibility to get in and out of the car, set up or pack down the pram and get the baby in or out of its car seat and manage any additional kids. The extra space provides a buffer zone for these activities and makes it easier to monitor what is going on. Pram parks are also closer to the shops, which means that there is less to navigate in the parking lot and less likelihood of an accident with an unattentive driver. As well as this, pram parks tend to be concentrated in the same spot, which means that vehicles in the immediate area are also likely to be carrying babies and kids. These drivers will be more aware of the safety risks and therefore more attentive and careful in their driving. Our next speaker will elaborate this point further. Thank you for listening.
I call upon the second affirmative speaker, Matthias.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that parking spaces for prams is unnecessary. We, the affirmative team, believe that the statement is true. The first negative speaker has tried to tell you that pram parks make it safer and for parents to get their children in and out of cars. This is wrong because just because a parent parks in a pram park, it does not mean their child or children are safer. Accidents happen anywhere. If a parent has a toddler and they park their car in a pram park, that child can still run off and be in danger of being hit by a car. Our first speaker for the affirmative team has already stated that parking spaces for prams are unnecessary because they encourage aggressive behaviour in car parks. She also said that pram parks are giving parents a sense of entitlement and discriminating against couples who do not have children. Today I'll be talking to you about 2 points. Now to my first point. Parking spaces for prams are unnecessary because unless the parent of the child has a disability permit which is visible, then assumably they are mobile and can walk to the entrance of wherever they are visiting. Pram parks are taking away necessary spaces for the disabled. According to the sa.gov.au website, in the section Disability Parking Permit Guidelines, disabled parks must be close to the entrance because people that use the handicap parking spaces are unable to walk, can't walk that far, or have trouble walking. In an article titled "Pram Parking Spots Are an Insult to People with a Disability" in the Courier Mail on the 14th September 2017, written by Dr. Jane Clinton, a person must be deemed by a doctor to be unable to walk and always in need of a wheelchair, or to have their ability to walk severely restricted by a permanent medical condition, or have their ability to walk temporarily restricted by a condition they will have for 6 months or more. Let's face it, being a parent is not a disability, and most of us could do a little extra walking. The problem is that parking spaces for prams are provided by these places as a courtesy, not a right. This is a marketing technique by the big shopping centres because in the article it mentions the parents with kids spend more money when at the shops than a disabled person would. Not giving enough disability parks to the disabled is denying them access and is against the law under the Disability Discrimination Act, amended on the 1st of January 2014, stated on the Australian Human Rights Commission website. Therefore, parking spaces for prams should be removed completely to provide the disabled the access points to places, giving them opportunity to conduct their duties more easily. Now to my second point. Parking spaces for prams are unnecessary according to a study conducted by the National Centre for Biotechnology Information in Maryland, USA. In the study titled "New Mothers' Views of Weight and Exercise," published in the American Journal of Maternal Child Nursing, Volume 33, on November 1st, 2009, Dr. Susan Groth found that 54% of the 680 women studied who had given birth gained more than 8 kilograms during their pregnancies, and 42% retained this weight a year after giving birth. In the conclusion it states, the new mothers need to walk more than they do, so parking further away with their children and walking further to build exercise into their daily routine is the first recommendation for shedding postpartum weight. Further supporting this idea, on the website abc.net.au, in the article "Motherhood and Exercise, Don't Sweat It," written on 24 February 2011 by exercise scientist Martha Bird, it discusses how new mothers are time poor and don't get enough time to go to the gym, and it lists suggestions for ways new mums can get more exercise into their daily routine. The top suggestion? When visiting the shops, why not park further away from the entrance and walk with the pram? In conclusion, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we, the affirmative team, have proven to you tonight that parking spaces for prams are unnecessary. Thank you.
I call upon the second negative speaker, Stella.
Thank you, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Before I pick up where our last speaker left off, I'd like to respond to some of the arguments put forward by the affirmative team. The first affirmative speaker has told you that pram parking is unnecessary as people use them incorrectly and aggressively. Our first speaker has said that just because some people don't use pram parks correctly doesn't mean that people that do use them correctly should suffer. The second affirmative speaker has told you that it's not just infants who are endangered. Some people run in the middle of the car park to put a shopping trolley away or anything like that. This might be true, but infants have less control over their actions and need to be controlled. This is why parking spaces for prams are in use. Our third speaker will elaborate. As already stated, car parks are dangerous places with evidence indicating high levels of injury and death. We have argued that pram parking, which is wider than a standard car park, closer to the shops and concentrated in a well-marketed area, is a necessary measure to reduce the risk of injury and death faced by parents who are easily distracted by the business of parenting. On this point, it is also worth noting that kids are particularly at risk in parking lots. As Dr. Corbin, a senior research fellow at the Monash University Accident Research Centre, has pointed out that children are more at risk because of their size and because they can't be seen over the bonnets of four-wheel drives or larger cars. This is not possible in standard car parks, where the spaces are narrower and the distance between parked cars means that doors can only open part way. My final argument is that pram parking provides a much-needed strategy to manage what is commonly known as a road rage. Pram parking gives parents more space to oversee their little ones, to keep them out of harm's way. The width of pram parking is featured necessary for practical reasons too, as car doors need to be fully open to get children in and out of the vehicle. In crowded car parks, tempers fray easily. People get impatient and hassle each other. Data realised by the RAA in 2014, for example, indicated that nearly 40% of all damage done to stationary cars occurred in car parks due to reversing under pressure or squeezing in and out of car parks, while other motorists waited impatiently for the spot. Pram parking, by its very nature, is slow. People using these spaces who have kids of their own are likely to be more forgiving of the time it takes to load the kids in and out of the car. As a result, there is less likelihood of bad behaviour or abuse, an observation that has been reported in studies that have looked at driver attitudes in the United States. Thank you.
I call upon the third affirmative speaker, Todd.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that parking spaces for prams is unnecessary. We, the affirmative team, believe that this statement is true. I will first rebut the arguments put forward by the negative team, and then I will summarise our team's case. The first negative speaker has tried to tell you that traffic management is a real issue when it comes to car parking lots. How does the size of parks affect traffic? No matter how large a park is, it will not affect traffic. But if a pram parking lot takes up 2 standard parking lots, wouldn't that just mean more traffic? The second negative speaker has tried to elaborate that point, but as I just said, that is irrelevant. They have also tried to tell you that these parking lots can make things a lot easier for parents. This is wrong because parents still have to load and unload their children from the car and the pram or capsule. What difference does a car park being slightly larger make? If anything, it is making parents lazier because of how close the parks are to the entrances of places. Also, parents need to be accountable for their children and correct and discipline them if they do not listen. If they unload their child from the car and they don't stand still and wait, then it is up to the parent to correct them and tell them off so they learn how to behave. I will now sum up our team's case. Our first speaker told you that pram car parking spaces encourage acts of aggression in car parks. Parents are being targeted by aggressive strangers in car parks if their children are not in prams and they are in a pram park. She also told you that parking spaces are unnecessary because they discriminate against childless couples and give parents a sense of entitlement. She also pointed out that pram parks are very unnecessary, especially with the Australian birth rate declining. Our second speaker has told you that because of parking spaces for prams, there is less parking spots for disabled and elderly people who need them more, as they are less mobile than parents with children. He also told you that studies have shown that a high percentage of women put on more than 8 kilograms during pregnancy and don't lose the weight until after they have had their baby, because they are time poor. He explained that studies have suggested that new mothers build exercise into their daily routine by parking further away and walking their way to better health. In conclusion, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we, the affirmative team, have proven to you that parking spaces for prams are unnecessary. Parents survived before pram parks were reintroduced, and yes, they will surely survive once again when they are removed from car parks everywhere.
I call upon the third negative speaker, Lila.
Good evening, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Layla O'Donnell. The topic of tonight's debate is that parking spaces for pram are unnecessary. As a member of the negative team, I am arguing against this statement. Before I summarise our team's case, I would like to point out the false arguments put forward by the affirmative team. The first speaker tried to convince you that parking spaces for prams are unnecessary because no one uses these parks correctly. But over 89% of users use these parks while looking after a child or infant, as stated on a recent survey conducted in 2017 in New South Wales. The second speaker tried to convince you that disabled people are disadvantaged by pram parking spaces. But it is stated by the Human Rights Commission that any disabled park placed in a car park has to, by law, be closer than any other opposing pram park. This shows that disabled people are not disadvantaged by pram parks. And how often do you actually see a disabled park being used? Less than a pram park. Lastly, I would like to take some time to rebut against the affirmative team's last speaker, that they said that there is no point in having pram parks and that they can just as easily walk from a normal park. This is wrong because pram parking gives parents space to control their kids and they are less likely for the kids to run away. With this extra space, they can see the child, unlike standard car parks where the child can often hide behind cars and often get hit. Pram parking allows parents. To conclude for the negative team in persuading you that parking spaces for prams are most definitely necessary, I remind you of our key points. Our first speaker, Sasha, talked about the many accidents that occur in parking lots due to the driver's disengagement with what's going on around them. She stated that the shocking statistic of kids who receive injuries in parking lots due to bad driving. Parking spaces for prams are necessary to ensure the safety of these children. Pram parking allows parents to monitor what is happening around them, which is a key factor in keeping a child safe. Our second speaker also stated that our children are more at risk because of the size and unpredictability. By having parking spaces for prams, it gives parents more space to look after their youngsters to keep them out of danger. Pram parking also lowers the chance of damage to other vehicles. So, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, as we explained, parking spaces for prams are definitely necessary. Thank you.